everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Orinda and I'm a Dutch expat who lives in England. And today I like to talk about Anne Frank. And Anne Frank is a very famous person in the Netherlands, and if you say World War II to a Dutch person, 9 of the 10 times they will say Anne Frank. I don't know how much you guys know about Anne Frank, but Anne Frank is a famous person because she was a Jewish girl who has been born in Germany, but her family has moved to the Netherlands because of the German threat for Jews in Germany at the time. Well, so later on they are going to be a threat in the Netherlands as well. But there's a moment that her family and other families need to go in hiding. And there was this area in where Otto Frank, her dad, worked. And it was an attic where she would live with her family and one other family. Well, it was a son and a father and another, I believe he was a doctor, who lived there, but they are all Jewish, so they are where in hiding. She wrote her diary, what was in way of expressing herself. She wanted to become a writer, and her name was Anne Frank. When she wrote, well, what we could see is how she become this girl and her background and her life. And we come to know that of her diary. Well, a lot of English-speaking countries knows her diary as the diary of a young girl. The Dutch know it as Het Achterhuis, and translated in English it would be the back house. So there was a lot to tell about Anne Frank, but I'm not going to go really deep into it because you can Google her, and there are a lot of movies made of her, but there are also a lot of documentaries. There is one thing I want to say, and this is one of the miracles that happened. So Miep Gies, she was a helper and she worked with Otto Frank in that company. And she was the one who found and kept Anne Frank's diary. And when Otto Frank returned, he is the only one of the Frank family who returned. And at that time, I'm ashamed to say this, because at the time, Dutch people, we have suffered as well. But when the Jews came back from the concentration camps and they survived the war, etc., they couldn't claim their house or things back. And I'm very ashamed of that. And you know, that is the weird thing for my part, because as I said before, I'm half Dutch, half Asian, half Indonesian. And my Dutch grandpa has fought for the Dutch, or was with the resistance here in the Netherlands. But my Indonesian grandpa had fought for the Dutch in Indonesia. So I have two war history that's blending into my family history. So sometimes, well, I always say I'm the best of both sides. I'm the bridge builder. I can understand both of the sides. So, coming back to Anne Frank was this little girl, young girl, with her energy was like a dynamite. And I think that's why she was so explicit, in her telling stories. Um, so she became very good friends with Peter, and I thought even he was her love interest. But, and that is the thing, and people who will go to Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, they still can find the grave of Margot and Anne, so the sisters of Frank. So Anne and Margot, her sister, have been buried in Bergen-Belsen. That's where their aunt stay was. The pity thing is when Margot and Anne passed away. 3 months later, it was the whole occupied Germany, well, so the Netherlands, etc. We have been liberated, and it was even more pity for Peter, cause Peter passed away 3 days before liberation, and I still have that. When I go to those graves of people who passed away in that time, military and common people, it always strikes me when I see a child grave called, not because they died at a young age, but also I always have to think, at that time, well, I didn't I didn't exist, I haven't been born at that time, but if I, for example, was like Peter was 16 or 17 years old when he died, then I would be dad for almost 25 years, because I'm 42 now. So it's, yeah, it's weird to think if you would have lived that and you will, for example, but that by 15, 16, 17 years old, because at the time there were young children who have been recruited for the army, etc. So it is weird to say, if I was passed away on that age, you will be dead like already 25, 30 years. And that is weird. I do believe that the book of the Diary of Anne Frank, the Diary of a Young Girl, is reading material in a lot of schools all over the world. And I don't know if it's one of the banned books. I don't know, because I'm not keeping up to date how many, if it is a banned book, but okay. I had to read it when I was younger, when I was that already a primary school? I think so. another thing I remember from that time, I have been to Auschwitz, one of the concentration camp, one of the biggest concentration camp. And I probably have said it before. As a sensitive person who can see, hear, smell, everything, I can see there are some things I have seen in the museum that was not funny. I became very quiet and scared, I don't want to say, but it was still, I was the only one who could see it. And luckily, one of the guides there noticed it. So he took me away. And when I acclimated, when I calmed down again, and I was balanced, I could tell what I saw. So you have to see, what I'm going to tell you now is how it really looks like. It's not that what I see as a high sensitive person, but it is what you see. And that was the most thing that got me. It was not the gas chambers, although I had to do a lot of healing work there. But you see a big chamber behind glass with only suitcases. You saw women's hair that they shaved off. You see clothing of children, toys of children, but not just a few, a mountain high. And there are even still barracks that you can visit, but it's actually there. So that was an impressive and chilled visit for me. But to know that Anne Frank was there at the age of 14, 15, it's, you can't comprehend that. And so there is one thing I like to tell you guys, what I really appreciated at that time. The company and the attic where Anne Frank used to live in hiding, it's still there. It's still there. The company floor where Otto Frank worked is a full-blown museum about Anne Frank, her family, her life, and World War II. You even get access to the actual attic where she lived. And I can remember, I don't know if it's still there because it's a while ago I've been to the attic there. There was one profile picture of Anne Frank that was still in her room. And at that point that I saw the real face of Anne Frank, it hits me. And once again, I felt a lot when I was in the museum and in the attic. But you can't imagine how she would have lived. Her original bed, her original desk, it's still all there. It's preserved. And the experience that I have had with being in those locations and seeing things that actually happen. And of course I know a few stories from my grandfather, both grandfather, and especially if I talk about the World War II in the Netherlands, I'm talking about my Dutch grandpa. So to know that if she could hold out a little longer, she would have survived. And it's amazing that her dad, Otto Frank, have survived. Maybe it's a lucky thing because all men who could work will be go into slave uh, work. So I believe he was a clerk, if I'm correct. So they could use him in the office. So it's less heavy duty work that he had to do. But I can imagine that he has seen a lot. And I remember an interview still with him. It is somewhere on, I believe, YouTube. And I thought that was with the BBC, if I'm correct. I can't remember anymore. But you see a person that is very quiet. And although he thinks it's important to tell people, it hits him every time. And I can understand that because it isn't, the World War II is not nothing, especially for people who have experienced it, and especially experienced it as a prisoner. And the weird thing is, the German officer, if you are an officer that's been captive, you got a better treatment than lower ranks or normal people, general people. And it is, so that's why I really love some of the stories that came out. For example, Nicholas Nichols, was that his name? He was the man who, with his admin talent, he shipped off Jewish children and make sure that they got adopted with under another name. They totally got another identity, and he saved about 600 Jewish children at the time. What was they made a movie of it too with Jack Nichols. Oh, no, not Jack Nichols. What's his name? Okay. Now I need to go and check what that movie called. But there's also an audiobook and a book about it. Hold on. Oh yeah. His name is Sir Nicholas Winton, and he was a stockbroker from England, and he rescued over 670 children, Jewish children, in World War II. Now I need to see, where was it? I just found it. Oh yeah. And I think there was what I said about YouTube. There was 50 years after World War II, he was on a program called That's Life, and they sorry guys, it's just very, very it makes me emotional that one person can do this. Um, he became reunited with those kids. Not all 670 with them, but there was a lot of one who were at that program as well. And go find it on YouTube. It's still there because I saw it. That's how I came in contact with the story of Nicholas Winton. Oh yeah. The movie and the book is called One Life, and that's about Winston. Winton. It's I can recommend it everyone to watch it or read it or listen to because I have it as an audiobook. But that's also with Anne Frank. There are a lot of movies, documentaries about her, and I must say, like I said, Anne Frank is for the Dutch very important because she documented it for her as like a from a child perspective, but also of what the Jews had to experience when the Netherlands was occupied. So there's only one thing I like to recommend. If you are in the Netherlands, please go have a visit to the Anne Frank Museum or the Achterhuis Museum. You will get access to the attic where she lived and a lot more. Her diary has been published in about 1770 languages and in about 130 countries, and it's also still in the museum, of course. Only bear in mind that you need to order your ticket online. It's worth going there if you really are interested who Anne Frank was. And once again, it's a very she's very important for the Dutch. And every year, and I have talked about that I think in the video of the 4th and the 5th of May video, why that's our important dates for the Dutch. The 4th of May, it's our death remembrance. So we remember every family member or soldier that died in the Second War. It used to be Second War, but now we have more wars, so we also do that. It's more general now than instead of the Second World War. And the 5th of May, we are celebrating our liberation. That is also the day that we really have been liberated in 1945. 45 or 47? 47. But Anne Frank is a big part of Dutch culture and also of history, and Dutch kids will have history classes with Anne Frank in it. So I hope it's a bit clear to you. If you have any questions about Anne Frank or about this subject, just let me know and I can make a video out of it or whatever. So let me know in the comments what do you think or what you know about Anne Frank, and I will see you next week. Doei doei!